What's going on, everybody? SpaceBallz here. Welcome back to another Calibria Crystal Guardians video. Today, guys, we're going to be doing a monster guide on the vampire, and I'm very excited about this one because, once again, I believe the vampire is super underrated in what he can actually do in like dungeons, arena, pretty much anywhere in the game. Vapor. The only place I really wouldn't use him is Lair, and that's just because of the fact that he can't do anything in Lair because he can't silence, Chimera can't take, a silence debuff or a passive block debuff. But other than that, I feel like he's pretty much usable anywhere in the game. So let's get right into this one, guys. And now I'm going by your guys's, what you guys are asking me to do, like which monsters you guys are asking me to do. Next on the list is Trollancer. And then next after that is going to be Cleo. So I'm just going in order of what has the most, votes, we'll say. Not necessarily votes, but what is being DM'd to me the most. So Vampire was number 1, and then Trollancer we'll do next. And I'm excited about the Trollancer because he's really good too. And then we'll do Cleo after that because I know a lot of people don't have Cleo. I mean, some do, some don't. But I feel like Vampire is one of those monsters that almost probably eventually everybody will end up pulling, if they're playing for more than a couple weeks into a month. Vampire is one of those monsters that you're probably definitely going to have in your box. So first things first, I have mine on a hybrid build, and that's because I use him pretty much everywhere. I mean, I don't really use him in dungeons that much because I speed run the dungeons, but if you're not speed running the dungeons, he is so good for dungeons because he can block passive on any one of those bosses, starting from C10 all the way down to, Dark 10, we'll call it D10. So, and I'm saying 10, and now there's 12 in the game. So all the way from C12 all the way down to D12. I know that made you guys smile. All the way down to D12. So mine is on a hybrid build here. I want to have some HP, a little bit of defense, a little bit of attack, a little bit of crit rate, a little bit of crit damage. But the most important thing here, just like the Wisp, is having 100% hit percentage on your vampire, because you want this skill, same like the Wisp, you want to make sure this skill is sticking and landing every single time. So this one here is a Summon a Pool of Blood, which attacks all enemies and deals 280% of attack and damage, 80% chance to disable enemies' passive skills for 2 turns, and silence them for 1 turn, and this goes up to 100%. And this is the vampire's bread and butter. This what makes him so good and so, valuable anywhere in the game, is this skill right here, except for Lair. Lair is probably the only exception to where, you can actually use your vampire. Catacombs, this is a good lead. Depending on where you are in the game, you might not have a good attack lead. So if you have the vampire, he has a really good attack lead. Now, there is other builds and other skills you can use on him. Me, personally, I only go with this build here because I don't necessarily use him for any of this stuff like his passive. Maybe now when RTA comes out, I might look into this stuff, because each time self kills an enemy, 70% chance to absorb the enemy's life, erase all negative status effects. Yeah, but see, me, I would always want to use this over these passives. When taking a fatal strike, 70% chance to drain the target's HP, equivalent to 200% of their attack to survive. Yeah, see, for me personally, I would only be using him for this right here, this block passive. So I would never want to use these passives over this. I mean, maybe I can't really think of a situation that I would want to use these passives over this skill here. And now I believe the second skill, this one is pierce the enemy with the hands of death to deal 550% of attack and damage. Now that is a really high multiplier. Damage increases up to 1.5 times as HP is higher. I like this one here personally. It actually has a higher multiplier, and this is boil the enemy's blood to deal 565% of attack and damage. If this deals a critical strike, restore 20% of allies' energy. Now, it's really hard to build him with 100% accuracy and 100% crit rate. So that's why I go with the hybrid build, because I just have like my, we'll say my second tier runes on my vampire. I don't have my, top tier runes on him. So, I mean, if you wanted to invest your best runes on your vampire, like if you're using him in arena and you're going to be using him for a few weeks, or if you're going to bring him into RTA when it comes out and you're really going to be using him, then it's okay to put like your best runes on him and have him with 100% crit rate for this skill, and then 100% hit percentage for this skill. This way you're getting the full effect out of your vampire. But for me, I like the hybrid build. It seems to work fine. He crits sometimes. You can always run a crit rate lead as well, as long as you get, in that 50-60% crit rate on him. And his A1 is drain the enemy's blood to deal 375% of attack and damage. Skill is embalmed with a 30% drain effect. This is actually a really good A1 because, if he takes a couple hits after he does all of this, skill 3, skill 2, he can, heal himself. So you don't have to run him on like a drain set or anything like that. So this is the build we're going to go with today because this, I believe, is probably one of the best builds out there, we'll say. The best skill builds out there. I mean, I'm sure you could use this one here, Hand of Death. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with this one, especially if you don't have a lot of crit rate on him and you don't think you're going to be proccing the crit rate anyways. Then there's no problem with going with Hand of Death. That's a personal decision. It's totally up to you. Again, these aren't the end-all be-alls. This is just the way I like to use my vampire. So that's how we're going to go over it today. So that's it for the skills. Now let's check out his runes. So now I like to have him on full conflict, and I have him on immunity because I use him in arena a lot. And I usually use him in a second turn team. So I have him on immunity so he doesn't take a defense break or anything, so they can't one-shot him on the first turn. So pretty much anything I use in arena on a second turn team, I'm going to have on immunity. And then I have the conflict just to beef up my nuker. So let's go to the runes here. Attack 8%, crit rate 20%. I actually got really lucky on this rune just before the video. I rolled this rune up and it actually went 3 times. Yeah, it went 3 times into crit rate. And I was like so happy, but this rune's probably not going to stay on my vampire now. It's probably going to end up going on something else because it's just such a good rune, except for the defense. But even having defense on an attacker, especially like a lair, damage dealer, it's not a bad thing to have some defense. So slot 2, we got speed, hit percentage, HP, crit rate, crit damage. You're going to see a general theme here of crit damage, crit rate, speed, and tankiness and hit percentage, because it's a hybrid build. And when you build something hybrid, you're kind of going for a little bit of everything. Just, trying to peak every stat as much as you can instead of just going for one stat, 100% in on that one stat. Speed 9, defense 22%, hit percentage, and crit damage. That's actually a legendary. I'm probably going to re-roll this rune eventually and put it on something else. So then we got slot 4, HP, because I want it to be tanky, hit percentage, speed, defense, and then it rolled flat attack. Not bad to have some extra attack on your vampire anyways. So we got slot 5, which is attack percentage, defense, crit rate, and speed. And then we got slot 6, hit percentage. Again, he's one of those, exceptions to the rule where you can run a slot 6 hit percentage, because you definitely want him to have 100% hit percentage, especially if you're going to use him like against the Zuras and high resistance teams. You want to make sure that his passive block is sticking 100% of the time. So we got defense, crit damage, speed, and defense. This is not the best rune. I could put my Wisp rune on him, but sometimes I like to use him paired with my Wisp, because then my Wisp strips, my vampire goes, and then my defense break goes, and then my nuker goes, as long as I'm facing a slower team and not a speed team, which we'll get into in a second. So I also have him sanctified, and I have him on Hawkeye. But again, if you have enough hit percentage, you can go with something else. You can go with pretty much... Vampire is really flexible with the sanctify, because if you have him built like towards damage, you can go with like an attack one. You can go, if you want him extra tanky or you want him to be able to take hits in RTA, you can go with the increase base HP by 15%, reduce final damage taken by 15%, and this is robust. And it also stacks with other res damage effects. I mean, you could pretty much go... I mean, the vampire is just so flexible. The only thing I probably wouldn't put on him is defense, unless you put this one on him. So it just in case he takes a big hit in the beginning, he'll be able to survive that big hit and then go into his second turn. Or it really all depends on how you're using your vampire, or how you use any monster in this game, is depending on how you're going to build it. So mine was just short a little bit of hit percentage, 20% to be exact, 21% to be exact. So I put him on Hawkeye because that's the one that fits him best. But there's just, you can pretty much use all these. Like, if you want to do extra damage, you can use Brave. If you want it to be super tanky, you can go with Blade Armor. You can go with, all of these, really all of these. If you want to get extra healing, Holy Body. So yeah, there's really no wrong Sanctify for the vampire, and pretty much that goes for all monsters in this game. You really don't pick a wrong one, as long as you're synergizing, what you're building. So you're synergizing your runes with your Sanctify. you can really never pick a wrong one here. So it's really, at the end of the day, it's up to you and what you're using your vampire for, whether you're using him in dungeons, you're using him in arena, totally up to you. See, if I was using him mostly in dungeons, I'd probably end up going like robust or something like that. But the fact that I use him in arena, because in dungeons, I feel like you only need 80 to 85% hit percentage. Arena, I feel like it's really important to have that, 95, 100% hit percentage. So that's why I have him on Hawkeye. But I could probably put this on something else if I was just going to use him in dungeons. So let's go over the sets now. What would be the best sets for your vampire? So Blessing wouldn't be bad again because you want him to be able to take turns. You want to be able to take hits. Unless you're going to, just use him to silence a passive. But normally if you're going to silence a passive, you plan on taking more than one turn. Unless you want to silence the Azura's like, reflect damage passive. And then you just want to nuke him down. But again, Blessing wouldn't be a bad thing. Attack would be totally fine because he can deal damage if you build him as a damage dealer. With 100% crit rate and a ton of crit damage. He can definitely do damage. Defense, I really want to put it on him because he's more of a damage dealer. So his base defense is super low. So unless you have like really good SS tier defense runes, I would stay away from that. Agile is really good because you're going to need him to go either, third or second on your team. He's either going to have to move after your stripper, or right after your, turn meter booster, like your Windwalker. So Agile would be really good for him. Wild is really good for him because, again, if you're building him for the A2, you want to make sure he has enough crit rate. Destruction, really good. If you have really good destruction runes, that would be good for him. Focus, very, very good for him. I wouldn't really worry about too much resistance unless you're using him, in RTA or like a resistance arena team. Again, where you don't want him to take a defense break, but that's why I put immunity on him so I don't have to worry about resistance too much for the first turn. Again, Desperation, a SS tier, I should say, up there with, Agile, Berserk, Focus, just for the fact that he has an AoE on his third skill that blocks passives, silences, and then he also will have a chance to stun. If I had a really good Desperation set, extra Desperation set, I would definitely put it on my vampire. I just don't have one right now because that would just be like the best three, combination to have. Stun, stun, passive block, and silence all in the same skill. So Desperation is probably, I would say, probably first if you can get it. Drain wouldn't be bad. Ooh, closed it out. Drain wouldn't be too bad, but again, he has a Drain built on his A1, and you're not really worried too much about healing him up. You're just worried about him blocking that passive and silencing, all of that good stuff. Frenzy could be good if you're going for a second turn or if you have him on defense and he takes a hit and it'll push him, to move faster and then he can get up the, passive block. But I wouldn't say that's, at the top of the list. Berserk is going to be good on any monster in the game. Doesn't matter as long as they're good Berserk runes. I just would never sacrifice stats for Berserk runes. So just remember that, guys, with any monster that you're building. Berserk is always going to be one of the better sets, but don't sacrifice stats just to use a Berserk set. It's not worth it. You're way better off using, Agile, Desperation, attack set, wild set, if the stats are just flat out better. Counter would be good because then he can counter and heal on his A1, so that's a good two-piece set. Guard's good because Guard's another one that's kind of good on anything because it has a shield. So if you plan on taking the second turn, it's always good to have a shield, especially on arena defense. Immunity for him is great. That's why I have mine on immunity because I plan on taking the second turn most of the time. So it's always good to have immunity so he doesn't take, a defense break and then die on the first turn. Revenge would be good on him, especially if you have him built as a damage dealer. And then any conflict's actually really, really good on him because then it boosts your damage dealer that you're going to be using with your vampire. And then as always, team runes are always good especially for support monsters. Like, I know vampire, I believe, is attack based, but you're kind of using it more as a support to block passive, silence, all that stuff. So team runes are always good on something like that, especially hit percentage, especially when you want something to have 100% hit percentage. Defense, again, if you're using him in like a tanky team, like with a Selene and like maybe like a Golem or something like that, good to have a little extra defense. The only one I would say I would probably stay away from is resistance. And I would probably always kind of stay away from fortitude because unless you're running a 100% resistance team, which you could probably get out of substats anyways, you don't really want to waste a 2-piece set unless you have like fantastic fortitude runes. Then it's fine. Like I said, it's always stats over sets. Just remember, guys, always stats over sets. It's always about the stats, not so much the sets. If you have the stats, don't worry about the sets. That's like the best advice I can give you, moving on in these champion/monster guides. I believe we went over everything for the vampire so far. So let's get into some action with our vampire. So first thing up will be Catacombs. I'm not going to run all of these. I'm just going to show you guys a couple things here. Then I'll show you a couple arena runs just so we don't drag this out too much. So I think pretty much here we can just take out the Wisp. And that's another great thing about the vampire is he can pretty much be inserted into any one of your teams. And that's why I love showing these kind of hidden gems, we'll say. Like these monsters are kind of hidden gems where people don't realize how good they are, until they see them in actual action. I believe this team, let me just make sure she's on the right stuff, which she's not. For dungeons, I kind of like to use this one because I feel like I don't really need, immunity or anything like that. I actually like to use the passive because I actually just want her to use... I actually do this sometimes because I only want her to use her... I'm only concerned about her using her A2 and her A1. I necessarily don't need her A3 because I have the Druid to take off any buffs or anything like that. We can actually go with the heal on this one just to show because if you guys are running more of a new team and you have Elven Queen, this would actually be a good setup, something like this. And then any damage dealer that you have, it doesn't have to be Loki. It could be any damage dealer that you're using, whether it's Archmage, whatever you end up pulling, whatever's in your box, that's what you can use. But I think Vampire is really good for Giants. I know you guys just smiled. Really good for C12. Again, it's funny saying C12 all the time. It's like having the name Giant just sounds so much better. But what's so good about him in C12 is that he can block that passive, so you don't have to worry about taking massive damage. So especially in an early game team, the Vampire is going to be so, vital to one of your teams, all of your teams actually, because you can just... What's great about him is you can build him and then use him in any team, so you don't have to worry about using losing value in 6-starring a monster. Because sometimes you 6-star a monster and then over time you kind of never use that monster, and that happens to me all the time. I have so many monsters I don't even use. I 6-star but I never use them. Vampire is not one of those monsters. If you 6-star him and you have decent runes on him, he doesn't need SS tier runes. He just needs medium tier runes. He's going to do great for you. He's going to work in every team. He's going to work in Vapor. He's going to work in Arena. He's going to work in Arena. Apex Arena. He's going to work Inferno. Pirate Treasure. Any of these Catacombs. You see now we have the passive blocked. So now that Giant can't do that crazy damage. And we have him silenced. So he can't use his A2 either. And it's just so effective. Again, you don't need Medusa. You can use the Mummy. You can use anything that puts up poisons. Same with the damage dealer. Pretty much everybody that I see so far always has the Dread. The Dread's one of the most popular monsters for people to pull early on. But just having that passive blocked here, when we go to that 50% damage, it's just so great because you don't have to worry about your team just taking, a ton of damage and then just dying off. So it's just great. The Vampire is just great. I can't say anything else about him. He's so good, and I don't think people realize how good he actually is, in every part of the game. And that's what makes him, up here, I would say, compared to most, Nat 4s, because of how usable the Vampire actually is. So that's it for that one. I'll show you, I guess I can show you a magic run, because he's doing the same thing in every one of these dungeon guys. He's doing the same exact thing. And what he's doing is he's blocking all of these passives, and then he's also blocking the A2. So magic is actually really good because what happens is, I believe this one always counterattacks. So you don't have to worry about him counterattacking you and chopping your team down, one hit at a time. I actually put really good runes on my Garuda guys. We'll get into that another time, but I put really good runes on him, and he does so much damage in World Boss because I sanctified him. But he does huge damage in World Boss. Just a tip for you guys, if you have a Garuda and he's sanctified, he's going to do massive damage in World Boss. Let's try to use something a little more free to play friendly here. everybody might have for the most part. So I feel like, especially in this game, because it still doesn't have a lot of, monsters compared to other games. So I feel like it's still a lot easier to pull nat 3s and nat 4s. So let's see if we can find something a little more free to play friendly that most people might have. Let me see. It should normally just come to me. Maybe we can do the mummy. And we're gonna need a damage dealer. I guess we'll go with his attack lead. We're still gonna need a damage dealer, but again, you can use any damage dealer that you have. I won't use Archmage because he's just gonna one-shot him. You could use Eve, you could use Zeus, you can use any damage dealer that you have will work fine. I'm gonna use Loki because he's pretty much got my best runes on him. I'm trying to think if this team's gonna work. This team might be a little long, but again, this team is very. Let's try to keep it as free to play. Let's not use him. I'm not sure if this is gonna work or not, but hey, let's try it. Let's try it for you guys. No 5 stars. Let's see if this will work. The only thing I'm concerned about is there's not a lot of control here. But I believe between the passive silence and the amount of turns that we're going to be taking between the swordsman and the windwalker, we should be just fine. So I want to show you guys a little bit more free-to-play stuff, I guess, for more of the people that are just starting the game, or are new to the games. I know a lot of people are going to have a bunch of nat 5s, a bunch of nat 4s, so you're not going to have to use a team like this, but this might help somebody out there that maybe doesn't have all these, OP nat 5s and stuff like that. And this team, what does it have? 1, 2, it has 3 nat 4s and 2 nat 3s. So I believe that this is pretty free to play friendly. And again, the vampire is the star of the show because he's silencing and blocking all of these passives, but he's also silencing them. So when they come back, the second turn, they're not able to do their, their second and third skill. So they're not able to do like massive damage and one-shot something. So he is very vital to this team, especially like this free-to-play team like this, because he's making it so like even this mini boss here, his passive is blocked, so we don't have to worry about him doing anything crazy or one-shotting us. So again, he is the star of the show, and that's why I want to use a team like this. It's not going to be the fastest team in the world, but it just shows that you don't need all these crazy nat 5s and all this stuff, to do this content. You can, if you have the right, monsters in the right team with the right synergy, you can get away with using nat 3s and nat 4s, and you don't necessarily need, a bunch of OP broken nat 5s. But again, the vampire, we're waiting for him to put up his passive block. I think we missed it. No, we didn't miss it. It's up. It's up. There he goes. And because he has 100% accuracy, so we don't have to worry about our vampire missing his stuff. And that's why I say it's so vital to make sure that hit percentage comes before anything else. Like, don't get confused and say, all right, I want to put 100% crit rate for the A2, because the A3 is so much more valuable. So you definitely want to get the 100% hit percentage first, and then you could work on building up that crit rate for his A2 if you want. I don't even think it's necessary, to be honest with you. As you saw there, it's not necessary because his A3 is just so good, so broken, that you don't need to worry about his A2. Just worry about, getting 100% hit percentage on that A3. So that's it for Catacombs. Now, I don't know if he's going to be a good farmer. He's definitely going to be good in Pirate Treasure. This actually just reset. We'll do something there. So let's just see if he can farm. I don't know if he's going to be able to farm. That's me building my Bone King team. I don't know if he's going to be able to necessarily farm, but we're going to find out. I've never tried it. Because I was lucky enough to pull the Lynch, like, I think as my second nat 5. So I always had a good farmer. So I never really test farmers out. I probably should test out more, so I'm more knowledgeable of, like really good farmers. His lead's not going to work here, but that's okay. I'm not worried about that. The Lynch's lead doesn't work here either. I just want to see if he's going to be able to farm like normal. Like if I was going to farm this normally, this is exactly how I would do it. So let's see if he can do it. Again, he doesn't really have, maybe if you put him, I might be, because maybe if you have him on a damage set, he probably might be able to farm actually. So maybe this isn't the best runes to have on him for farming necessarily. But again, you're going to have him built like this, 99.9% of the time. Unless you want to sit there and switch runes back and forth. I don't think that's really, most people don't want to do that because it's like boring and tedious to sit there and then worry about what runes you're moving. And then once you take them off, they get mixed up with all your other runes. So you have to pick through them. It looks like he might be able to do it. Maybe. If he keeps using his A1 and healing here, he should be okay. But he's going to take huge damage here. So he really needs to start using that A1. Which he's not. So I don't think he's going to be a really good farmer. Because that's only stage 2. He's doing okay though. He's not doing... I feel like if I had him built on damage, he'd be able to one-shot all of this. So I'm not going to say he can't farm. I'm just going to say he's going to need a damage build to farm. Because if you saw that last hit there, he actually took everything, more than, half their HP away. So I feel like if I had him on a damage build, instead of, because we have like no damage on him really. He's got really low attack. So if I had him on a full damage build with, 100% crit rate, 150% crit damage, I believe he can farm. I just don't think he's the most optimal farmer out there compared to what else he can do in the game. So let's see if we can do a Pirate Treasure run. I think he does good damage in Thanos as well, which is World Boss. I'd like to hit Legendary ships just for the fact that, see, he could be good here, depending on how fast. We'd want her to move first. This might actually be a good thing, a good showcase for him, because we actually want her to move first. We're testing that. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to try something here. I'm going to try something here. See how it works out. I'm going to try to take the second turn here. I need to get my Wisp on immunity, actually, because I noticed today she kept getting one shot on the first turn, so I hope that doesn't happen here. So I'm thinking something like this. I can use my second Succubus, which is a little bit slower. So I have a fast Succubus, and then I have a slower Succubus on immunity. Because I have like 10 Succubuses. I have like 10 Bone Kings and like 10 Succubuses. I pulled so many of them on my account, and she has really high hit percentage as well. So we'll try her. I don't necessarily... So I like to put them in order. I know that doesn't really matter, but... So actually, he's going to move before her. I hope. Need him to move before her. He's 178. Yeah, perfect. So the order is good. So that's the exact order that I want here. And then I want my nuker to move last, which is normally my Loki. Again, it's any nuker that you're using, whether it's Zeus, whether it's Eve, it's all up to you, and depending on what you're using. And this will actually give him more crit rate as well. Not sure if this is gonna work, but let's test it out. Let's try it out. As long as they move the way I think they're gonna move, I think the Elven Queen's gonna move first, put up the immunity, and then our team is speed tuned. And that's very important too, guys. I always tell you the speed tuning your team is very important because we're speed tuned here. Our team is going to move, one after the other, except for this princess. No, I think we're faster than the princess. But even if the princess cuts in, it's really not that big of a deal. So we strip. Yeah, so I'm not worried about her cutting in here. She doesn't do much damage. The only thing that's not good is that she stole the immunity. So now we can't kill her on the first turn. But that's okay because we're mostly worried about, yeah, see, speed tuning is, see, that just shows you guys how important speed tuning is. Because now I think we're going to lose here. Because this is going to reflect so much damage. Yeah, we're going to be dead after this. Because even if I don't use this, I'm going to try to kill it. Because even if I didn't use that, and I just killed the Azura, it wouldn't matter because they would have had so much health and they would have came back anyways. The problem there is I should have used Windwalker instead of Succubus, believe it or not. But that's okay. Let's go into some... You know what it is too? I always forget in this Pirate Treasure stuff, the boats get extra stats. I always forget that too. I haven't even finished my Inferno yet. I was actually been grinding Apex like a madman. I was actually first yesterday. We'll go into that in the grind is real, which I'm doing next. We'll get into that. This is actually the defense I've been using. I don't know how it's doing. There. It seems like it's doing great, but we'll go over this in the grind is real. I'm going to go over all of this stuff, my new arena defense, my Apex stuff. Now, let's just try to... Yeah, this is the team I was actually using. Was this the team? No, I wasn't using the Succubus. That's what it was. That's why that other team kind of failed, because I wasn't using the Succubus. What I was doing is, I wasn't worrying about the defense break. I'm using the silence, the Golem, and these Troll Lancers, so he's really good in a team like this too. And like all those teams that you guys see, like the Cleo, double Troll Lancer, and the Elven Queen, Vampire is great for those teams. You run them with a Stripper, a nuker, just like I'm going to show you here, and then he'll silence and block Cleo's passive, all of the Troll Lancer's passives, and then they become useless after that because they can't really do anything to you. So Windwalker, what are we looking for? Oh, I'm looking for the Wisp, because I'm pretty sure he's going to have immunity. Something like this, I think, would actually be a really solid team, because again, speed tuning is so important. Even there, you saw that they cut in on me in the Inferno. And that's the one thing we don't want, is we don't want them cutting in on us. Strip these shields, even though the vampire is going to put the shields back anyways. But what happens here now is all of this stuff has passives. This princess, this golem, these two troll lancers, they all have passives, and now they're all useless. So these troll lancers are not going to be doing massive damage like they normally would. Maybe if their A2 is on all in, it might still do a little bit of damage, but it's not going to do half the damage it would if he had his passive active. And this is why Loki's good, because he has control. So any damage dealer you have, like Archmage with the freeze, something that has some type of control, Medusa, anything that has AoE control is going to be really good for this stuff. After this, I don't want to make this video too long, so I hope this gets the point across on how good the vampire is. Because even if they weren't frozen, they wouldn't be able to do anything because they're silenced and their passives are blocked. So they wouldn't be able to do anything anyways. They would be able to move and hit me with their A1, which would do absolutely nothing to me because it's just their A1 and everything has got stacked with HP and some defense, so I wouldn't be worried about that anyways. But I don't want to make this guide too long. I hope that shows you guys how good the vampire actually is and how to build him, where to use him. But that's going to wrap it up for this one, guys. I'm working on the Twitch stuff. We're so close. I can pretty much definitely say Monday is probably going to be our first stream. I'm like 95% sure that Monday is going to be our first stream. So if you want to follow me there, that is down in the description. We don't have a giveaway, but we're super close for our 100 sub giveaway. We're like 12, 13 subs away from 900. And thank you guys so much for that. But we always have the random giveaway going on. So make sure you're subbed to the channel. You're liking and commenting on all videos. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. SpaceBallz out. Peace.